So again, I am Dr. Sharon, educator, author, entrepreneur, and speaker, and host of Leadership Matters with Dr. Sharon. And tonight, my guest is Ms. Kelisa Wing. She is currently an assistant principal. She is a former 2017 DOD Teacher of the Year, and also the 2016 Emerging Leader for ASCD. So I would like to welcome once again Ms. Kelisa Wing. So Kelisa, welcome. I think we got all of the bugs ironed out, so welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon.
Okay, and so you were actually just really going through your background. You were enlisted in the Army right out of high school, I believe. So if you can please take the time again to just share that rich background with everyone.
So I'm a Toledo, Ohio native. Like you said, right out of high school, I joined the military as a way to pay for my college education. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I just didn't know how I was going to get to that point. And so the Army really provided that way forward for me. Once I joined the military, I met my husband, who was an active duty soldier as well. We traveled around. I went back to college, got my degree through University of Maryland, went to University of Phoenix, got my degree through there. And then that's when I started working for the Department of Defense Education Activity, or better known as DODEA, when we were in Germany together, myself and my husband and my child. And so coming through DODEA really provided a way for me to get into education, although I wasn't quite an educator yet. And so once we got back to the United States, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. I began teaching there English, and I went back to school because I knew that I wanted to be an administrator and really make an impact on teaching in a more profound way than I could from the classroom. And then I was selected as DODEA's Teacher of the Year, 2017, which was an honor and a blessing. And after that, became an assistant principal, moved up to New York, and that's where we are now.
I love it. And, my heart is with my assistant principals and those who aspire to the principalship. And I know that you haven't been an assistant principal long, but do you feel that is an aspiration for you to become a principal?
I believe that wherever God leads me is really, where I want to be. If I really would love to become a principal when I'm ready. I believe that your success should never outpace your maturity level. And so I feel like when I'm ready for that's definitely something that I would love to aspire to.
Very good. And I always ask that because it really, when you're intentional about your preparation, which is really what my dissertation was on, preparing to lead. Although you're leading as an assistant principal, it's very different to be the leader of a building. And I just believe that the preparation should be intentional. And so I'm always wondering when I speak to assistant principals, is that an intent for you? So very good. As long as you feel when you're ready, you'll move forward if that's what you choose to do. So let's talk about a little with your work with teachers, because you really have a heart for teachers, for education in general. But when did you know that education was your path?
I was 16 years old, and my English teacher actually recommended for me to be a sixth grade camp counselor. And so up until then, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to carry briefcases and dress very nice and argue. And so once I went to camp and became a counselor, I realized that the kids were really listening to me, that I could help them solve problems, and I was really good at it. And so I remember when I came home and I told my mother, I said, I'm going to be a teacher. And she just kind of looked at me and said, teachers don't make a lot. And I said, well, but teachers make a difference. And that's what I wanted to do. And so that's when I knew that I wanted to be an educator. It wasn't about a subject, but it was more about I wanted to be where children were.
And that's really impactful because as educators, most of us, the majority of us, really feel that we make a difference, because that's really what it's all about, making a difference in the lives of the students that we teach and that we touch. And even as administrators, we still make that difference. Now it's just more so with adults as well as teachers. So that's absolutely wonderful. So I say hats off to you for that. So now let's talk a little bit about your platforms, because you really are very vocal in the literary world as far as blogs, because that's really what connected to me. I read one of your, I don't know if either someone interviewed you or it was you, but it was you telling your story of your first year as an assistant principal that caught my attention. Simply because I work with first and second year assistant principals. I even shared it with them, and they all responded as part of an assignment, because it really, it was the reflection piece, because I'm an advocate for reflection. So tell me a little bit about what you reflected upon and how is that helping you now where you are?
I think that, going from a state teacher of the year and being very beloved, right? Everybody wants to hear you. Everybody wants to be around you. And then going into a job where you're not always going to be well-liked. The decisions that you're making are not always going to be the decisions that everybody wants to hear. That's a tough place to be in. And so, but, one of the things that grounds me is that I always think, what is best for children? As long as I'm doing what's best for children, it's okay. And I think during that time when I was writing on that, I was, it was a tough week, and I was just like, so many things and so many different moving parts, and having to be the person to have courageous conversations and not be afraid of confrontations when it pertains to the children in my building. And so I was kind of having that moment and thinking, okay, this is not as easy as it. Nobody said it's going to be easy, but anything that's, worth fighting for. And I believe that every child needs somebody that's willing to stand their ground, to fight for them, and to do what's right, even if it isn't the popular thing, and even if it isn't going to make people love you or like you. But it's what do these kids need? And sometimes these kids need for the people in their building to stand up to the adults and say, no, that's not right. No, there's a better way. Let's do this, but let's do it together. And so I think as I was writing that, I was really being reflective about, how do we help people without hurting them? How do we build them up without tearing them down? And so that reflection piece really helped me and grounded me in, it's okay. And it's okay, and then I kind of went through a moment where I felt a little guilt because I left the classroom, because I left that fight. But then I thought about the impacts that I'm able to make now as an assistant principal. I couldn't do that in room 134. I can get a grade level to make a decision that's going to impact 80 kids or 500 or 700 students in a building, whereas I was only able to touch 100 kids, and when I was teaching last year. So I see that impact is even greater and more significant now. So we need people to go ahead and pathways into different things in education, but we just need people who have a heart for children and a love for the profession.
Absolutely. And you touched on one important thing, and that is about the courageous conversations. That is one of the things that not every administrator is equipped with handling, are those tough, courageous conversations, because as you, especially as a novice leader, because you will get in there with seasoned teachers who've been in there, for quite a long time, and it can be a battle. But as you said, when you have the heart for children, you're able to speak up and speak for children, because just because you are seasoned does not mean that you are effective or deliver quality instruction. So talk to us a little bit about how you've managed to muster up those courageous conversations.
Well, I think first, when I get into those situations, I try to think, what are they not saying? To kind of hear beyond the noise. And then, my pastor said something about a week ago, and he said, what can we come together on? And we can come together on children. And so really, I think when reminding everybody that, while I know it's heated it's okay because we're passionate about these children. And once you start laying that groundwork, that it's the passion that we're feeling, and that's why everybody, emotions are high. And then what can we come together on? We can all come together around the fact that we want the best for these kids, and we want student achievement. That's what we come to work for. And then kind of bringing the tensions down. And like I said, the biggest thing for me is, if I don't address this, is this somewhere that I want my child to be? Would I want for my own children? This what's happening. If I don't address this, what harm does that do for these children? Because I've been a child. I was failed in the first grade. I've had teachers that weren't invested in me as a child, and especially for our children of color and our underserved populations. We've got to be a champion for every child, but I feel like in this role for such a time as this, I have a responsibility. I can't stay silent on certain things.
That's really impactful. It really is. And I know when passion is there for you, like you said, you will speak up for children. I mean, it's just that simple. You will do that. So as you know, research says that leadership is second only to the classroom teacher when it comes to the effects that impact student achievement. And the name of my show is Leadership Matters, because I believe that it does. So please let us know why you feel leadership matters.
Leadership matters because somebody has to be the leader. Somebody has to be willing to go out there and to show people this is the way to go. Follow me, And one of the things that I always try to say is, nobody works for you. We work with each other. And so, in the Army, we took the word leader, and broke it down, and it was loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And that was a leadership acronym. And so that's why leadership matters. We've got to have some loyalty. We've got to have duty, a responsibility, that selfless service, that it's not about you. And being a servant leader, I think, is certainly the kind of leader that I aspire to be. Is I'm in the service of children, and I'm in the service of just really modeling what do I want to see in this world. We need love in this world. We need some compassion. And so that's what I try to show and put out there. And we need courage. And sometimes courage is that strength to have, like you said, that courageous conversation, even when it's uncomfortable, but modeling how do we do that? Because too many times, I think, especially right now with the current state of affairs, we're afraid to have these conversations. And it's just once every side digs in, and nobody actually hears each other. And so that's how we really break that down. And it is our responsibility as educators to teach our kids to be better than us and to be able to have these tough conversations. And so that's what a leader is, and that's why leadership matters.
Absolutely. And so really staying on that same idea, with leadership, we also know that providing a climate and culture that's conducive for learning really starts at the top and trickles down. How do you, as a leader, and even as your role as an assistant principal, contribute to a positive culture and climate at your school?
I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. That's number one. And even as an educator, I never profess to be perfect. And so I'll use a lot of things that I've learned along the way as a way to get, through some of those things that we need to do. And so really being vulnerable, being a present person in the classroom, being there, getting down on the floor. The other day I made a penguin in the first grade with the kids, and I'm stuffing the stuffing in there. And I'll go in, I believe that we should look like professionals. So, we have to look the part. We have to be the part. We have a responsibility. And so I think setting that tone of I'm present, I'm visible, I'm here, I want to know what's happening. Another practice that I think is really important for a leader is when somebody brings something to you, bringing people together and showing them how do you go to somebody when you have an alt with them. modeling for them how to get to the root cause of problems. And so I think that's definitely something. And then just being a listener and an active listener. And like I said before, listening for things that aren't said. But certainly making people feel welcome and wanted and needed, because that's really, everybody wants to feel wanted and everybody has value. So I think that's definitely how you set that tone.
Awesome. And one of the things that I also try to encourage is self-care for leaders. That's, a lot of times, especially my novice leaders, work long hours. If they leave school at a decent hour, then still work at home. And actually, that's really probably across the educational industry, not necessarily even with leaders, but as an educator, we tend to do that. What types of things do you do for self-care so that we can keep going? Because as you know, we got to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. So talk to us a little bit about self-care, or maybe some of the things that you need to employ, because I see that smile on your face. But what are some things that you think need to happen so that we can preserve our energy and our sanity and everything?
Well, I'll say that in addition to being a principal, I'm very active with the National Network of State Teachers of the Year. I'm very active with ASCD and different things. I'll be presenting at conferences for them, and so that work still continues. So I think that professional learning network for me is big. Especially like the other 2017 State Teachers of the Year that have become like family to me. When I'm having a dilemma, I can go to them and vent that out, and I have a safe space. I also have mentors who are principals. I have mentors who are superintendents that when I'm having those tough days, I can reach out to them and feel safe to know that, I can bounce an idea off of them, or I can complain in a safe place. So I think that the network, I think the self-care is having a network of people that you can lean on and rely on. And of course, my biggest self-care is my family. My husband is such a supportive person, and for many years he was the career person, and I followed him around, him being a soldier until he retired. But that's my self-care. My family is so important and vital to me to have that balance. My mother, my sister. So my self-care, I do work long hours, but I find such joy because I have a huge separation between what's work and what's home. And I try not to cross those lines. And I keep my home life very sacred to me. It's very special to me. So
I love that. Well, good. So you touched on something there in your response, and that's the mentoring piece, and the whole networking piece, because as an educator and now an entrepreneur and author, I really didn't learn about the importance of mentoring and networking in that sense until I broke out and started my own business, because then, of course, I was looking for that mentor. I was looking for all those things. And I spoke at Howard University a few months back, and I shared that, and I said that educators are missing out with that whole networking piece. We don't do that quite enough. And that's one of the things that I just applaud, that I actually changed my mindset and started reaching out to different people, because you've got to get out of your box. You cannot just talk to people in your school district or your school. And so many people get just locked in that. So talk to me a little bit more about how you chose your mentors, and definitely at all levels. Like you said, you have principals, you have superintendents, and that's the same thing that I started doing. I started reaching out to individuals because it's really easy to do. They're either going to say yes or they're going to say no. So you just have to put yourself out there to broaden your horizon and build your network. So talk to us a little bit about how you formed that and really how it's helped you so far.
Well, I'll say a huge way to get started on that is get on Twitter. Twitter has been such a phenomenal professional learning network. I've learned so much on Twitter and gotten so many, and it's better than Pinterest, teachers. Twitter, when you get on the right networks and things like that. When it comes to like the principal, I had an assistant principal actually a few years ago, and I feel like I have a good sense of discernment, and she's just such a good. This was the kind of leader I aspired to be. Her name is Edwina Smith, and so I asked her. I went to her and I said, "Will you be my mentor?" And she said she was touched. Of course, my former superintendent, Dr. Lisa Coleman. I saw something in her, something that I wanted to be, and so I went to her and I asked her, would you be a mentor to me? And so, of course, these people say yes. So I still reach out to them. So I'm always looking for who that person can be, and because we need people, we do not have this all figured out, and not just people, but good people who have a good heart, who are just going to be that person that's going to tell you the truth and say, nope, that was jacked up. No, don't send that email. I remember my old superintendent, I had to call her for something, and I said, I'm going to send this email. Do not send that email, Kelisa. Oh, yes, ma'am, I won't. You need people like that. And so I think it's important to humble ourselves and to admit that we need help, because this is not this is a labor of love, and it is not easy, and you need to have your people. And then, of course, like the state teacher of the year group, that just came because that's a really unique situation to be in, and you really bond with that group of people. And we are family. I'm family with all the 55 state teachers, and it's great. I have a friend in every state. Anywhere I go, hey, I'm coming to South Carolina, and okay, and they open up their doors for you. These people have become like my family, so I'm very blessed.
That is awesome, awesome. And you are an author, I think twice. You have 2 books. Please tell us about your books.
Well, I'll tell you about my most recent book, and that's Weeds and Seeds. And that's really about the whole premise of, you can be a weed in somebody's life, or you can be a seed in their life. And it's up to you, which one are you going to be? And my thing was, I've had people try to put a weed in there, and weeds run deep. But I've had people plant seeds too, and that seed was so powerful. And so this story is really kind of about like my life and coming up and dealing with things that I didn't deal with for a long time. I remember speaking to my family and telling them that I was going to write this book, and I wanted to make sure it was okay with them, but I needed to speak truth, because a lot of people, and especially, in our culture, we carry a lot of hurt that we don't talk about, that we don't deal with. But it all boils down to like who we are. And I felt like telling my story could help other people, that you don't have to choose that negative thing that somebody tried to put on you, that you can be that seed, and then you can continue to plant seeds in the lives of everybody that you encounter. And so I'm very proud of that book. It was very therapeutic to write for me and my family. And I just think I think it's wonderful. Of course, I will say it's wonderful because I wrote it. But my first book was called Conversations. I wrote it many years ago. Oh my goodness, I was in a different place. It's a fictional novel. Proud of that book too. But I feel like Weeds and Seeds is definitely a wonderful book. And hopefully, very soon I'll start, as you say, write the book now. I'll go ahead and write another book. I'm just kind of feeling out. I'm actually in the process of writing a book with ASCD on some topics. I'm just doing a few chapters for a book that we're working on, but I want to definitely write more books.
I love that. I love that. That Weeds and Seeds. Oh my God, that's so powerful. I love that. Can't wait to read that. Definitely. So where can all of these wonderful educators, and you've got several comments. Thank you, Elisa Mitchell, for joining, and Simone Walden. She is a heart for teachers. You definitely need to connect with her. I really appreciate them. So where can everyone follow you on social media?
Well, my Twitter is at Kelisa _. So it's at KELISA _L 2 and teach. So at Kelisa _L to teach. I also have my Facebook page that's open. It's Kelisa Wing 2017 Jodia Teacher of the Year. And my book is available on Amazon in Kindle and print edition as well. So those are the places that you can follow me. And if you follow me, I'll follow you back.
Awesome. And Carolyn Ward said it was a great book. So awesome. And what would be your final message to educators everywhere, be it teacher, administrator? What would be a message to them?
My message is never lose your passion. It's very easy, to get bogged down in the daily grind, but always remember your why. Why did you come into the profession in the first place? And just take that with you every day. And remember, one of the things, always remember to be a thermostat and not a thermometer. You can set the tone in your building, in your classroom, in your community. If it's hot, bring it down some notches. If it's cold, bring it up. But don't go in with a thermometer telling us the temperature. You can set the atmosphere where you go, and there's a lot of power in that.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Kelisa Wing, I am so appreciative of you. Even, I don't know, how long ago has that been since I connected? A few months ago, maybe.
Maybe back in December, I think, is when I wrote that piece.
Yes.
And I was so touched. I was like, oh, wow.
I was so touched by the entry. I was like, oh my God, I got to send this out to my assistant principals. So I really appreciate it. And that's what I do. Things that resonate with me, I reach out, that's just who I am. And so I'm so grateful that you responded because I knew you were someone that I needed to talk to because I love your spirit. I love your determination. I just love everything. And so now that I've gotten to talk to you and know your background, it's there. So I appreciate you. And I say much success to you for all your future, because you're going to go far. Everyone, you need to remember Kelisa Wing, because that name is going to be a household name.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. And I just want to commend you on just what you're doing for the culture. I watch all the things that you do and how gracious you are and how you build up women. And I think you're phenomenal. And I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. I so appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Guys, this has been such an awesome interview, and I know you enjoyed it. I appreciate those of you who joined us live, and then those of you who are going to come back and catch the recording. It was just awesome. And so I thank you for taking the time out of your evening to be with us. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to continued interaction and hopefully some collaboration between us.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining another episode of Leadership Matters, because in fact, leadership matters. Thank you and have a great night.